Hi. Hello. Welcome to episode 2 of Earthshare. Today we have Brenda Kyle joining us. And I would just like to acknowledge that today's a very heavy day for many, if not all of us. And Brenda told me earlier, now we're still doing this. Is everyone feeling up for it? And I thought, yeah, because, coming up with Earthshare and all the people that I wanted to interview, it was about people who inspired me to keep working because I really enjoy the work that they do in their communities and in the planet. And I thought it would be very important to talk about the work being done and the future that we're envisioning. So if Brenda's on, I will invite her. She's not on it. But I hope everyone out there is doing okay. I'm glad you can all join us.
Should I check in?
Sure. Good check in there. Okay, thanks. Yeah. So just a reminder that we'll be looking out for your questions for Brenda. Anything you want to ask. And we are ready to go very shortly. But anything you want to chime in as well, I'd be happy to hear from you in the comments. It's a beautiful day today. I hope people can enjoy the sunshine and breeze. And she should be on very shortly. The posters. I don't know. Where did we get the posters? The bottom ones are from our children. The other ones are from all over the place.
Let's see, the one behind me is Environment Initiative, which gives free environmental resources to teachers. It's a pretty great resource. It's provided by the state.
All right, there she is. Hi,
Here I am.
Hi, Brenda.
Everyone.
We'd like you to introduce yourself in any way you want to introduce yourself.
Goodness gracious, I need to catch my breath. It's been a morning and a day, and how long has we been in craziness? Like 500 years, right? So, so I'm Brenda Kyle. I'm Tepehuan Tarahumara descent, so I bring that experience in almost everything I do. Naturalist, interpretive guide, just all around goody two shoes most of the time. I think that's a good intro. Yeah.
So the first question we have for you, Brenda, I'm hearing echo. Is anybody out in the Instagram world hearing an echo? Okay, I'm going to continue.
Okay.
Our first question is, what does nature mean to you?
Nature is freedom. And I know that in the context of recent events, bird watching maybe wasn't so free for some people, but nature is freedom. Nature is being out and about and just enjoying existing.
Can you talk to us about what your first experiences were with nature?
The ones that I remember, being dirty and muddy and barefoot and hair not combed and just running around, not caring about anything, not doing laundry, not having a job, not worried about anything, just having fun and being free.
Do you, where do you remember those experiences happening?
Oh,
What are
those
your
were
first
all. Those were
places?
in Durango. I know that I have some experience in Texas, especially along the Nueces River. I vaguely remember that. I remember Durango. I remember the way that it smelled. I remember being up in the mountains. I remember the moon coming up over the riverbed. I remember the mountain in the background, just like it is here. I remember the smell of the different burning woods, and Durango is the mountains specifically of Durango are the ones that I remember. And when we moved here to the San Gabriel Valley to Duarte, it was that same layout. The mountains were in the background, the river was around, and it was rural, cows and chickens and horses and everything else. We lived up in Hanford for a while. My father was a cowboy at Harris Ranch, so I remember it being flat and maybe one or two trees here and there, and the smell of cows. So that's the nature. It was scents and just expanses of place.
One thing that we have in common is that we both went through the Nature for All Academy training, and I wanted to talk about your experience with Nature for All and your connection with them.
Oh gosh, I don't even know what cohort we're in right now. I think I was either cohort 4 or 5, so it's been a while. It was a very positive experience. Learning organizing. I think we all know how to organize. We just have to brush up on those skills. And art as activism, that blew my mind. And activism through storytelling, that's the one that really stuck with me personally, is storytelling is activism, that oral tradition, that getting someone to empathize with what you're saying. So maybe not to convince, but to maybe have them see things a little differently.
Can you tell us about some of the work? I know you do a lot of work all over the place, but some of the work you're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Right now, I've been quietly organizing to get binoculars so that we can get more people of color out birding. And it hasn't been easy. It's been very difficult on a very personal level. But the only way that we can normalize seeing people of color out in nature is by being the people of color out in nature. And you know how we do, just bring everyone with you. So that's one thing. And I've been a docent at Eaton Canyon for almost, at least 8 years. We're getting on to 10. In December, I approached the Forest Service to start an interpretive program up at Crystal Lake, and they were all for it. You know, we were getting all the paperwork in order. I was supposed to start January, February. My father passed away in December, so that just threw, winter was just not happening for me. Then once spring started, cooties were everywhere. So yeah, when the plague is over, I'll be at Crystal Lake doing something with someone. Whoever shows up, I'll be there. Yeah.
How did you get involved with this kind of work?
Specifically with Nature for All, they offered that $500, to do whatever. I'm telling the truth. And I needed a computer because I didn't have one. I'm like, okay, I could do this. I'll just do it for the computer, And I kind of have one, but I didn't get it with that $500. That $500 I think I spent on like registration for my car or something. But that's what, led me to this. Before that, I had started doing the nature work at the canyon, but that wasn't activism. That was just, being a naturalist, being a guide. After going through Nature for All, they complemented each other. And then I realized, just me being present is activism.
I wonder if you can talk about the community that you work in, how that functions to support you, and how you're able to serve the community that you are part of.
I'm everywhere. I'm all over the mountains, specifically the mountains. I've done work at the beach, the river, but the mountains they're always home. The Rarumari people are the runners of the Copper Canyon. That's mountain. Tepewan means mountain dweller. That's who I am. That's the community I support. Not necessarily people, but the mountains themselves, and to get people to understand that this is the mountain is alive. The mountain needs respect. So I see myself as serving the mountain and everybody else that comes along. When it comes to serving people, it's the people in my community, the people in the park, the people that are brown, the people that are black, the people that don't have the outdoor experience, access to the outdoor experience, that maybe need a little guidance in enjoying the outdoor experience, to enjoy insects, to enjoy flowers. A lot of communities are denied that opportunity.
So you mentioned access.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about how you see the needs for access? Describe how you see equity in this context.
Gosh, with a lot of the closures, some of the comments that I've been reading on across all social media have been, stay home, stay away from our spaces. And I'm thinking, okay, no, there are spaces too. And some of us don't have places to walk in our neighborhoods. That's why we have public parks. Some of us don't have stable home situations. That's why we have, rec centers and other places where we go to maybe, fill that void. Some people don't have, some people just don't feel safe in their communities. And that's why we go where there is that built-in safety, that we're all here just to enjoy the park. So access in that regard, it was very not eye-opening, but it was definitely a reminder that access is still an issue, and that a lot of communities take ownership in different ways. Equity is making sure everyone finishes the same way, not just starting the same way, not giving the people the tools to start in the same way, but giving people the tools to finish, that the end product is the same across the board. Giving someone, binoculars to go bird watching. Okay, cool. We need transportation. We need, a safe space. We need experienced leaders. We need gear, shoes, jackets, all of these things that go along with the outdoor experience. Binoculars are not enough. So that's what equity is making sure that everyone has what they need for the end result to be the same.
It reminds me of how you were talking about the mountain itself being a community as well. Talk a little bit about how we don't all have equity to open space, how open space itself has to be fought for, and wildlife has to be fought for as well, and how we can work towards protecting that.
It's really sad that we have to fight for clean air, for clean water, for clean soil. Really, we have to fight for these things? These are things that everybody needs, across the board. We need clean soil for clean food. We need clean water because water is life. We need clean air because, we're all breathing it. So that whole we have to fight for these things is beyond me. But here we are fighting that fight. Oh, gosh, I think I went off on a tangent and I needed to repeat the question.
I don't know. I was just trying to relate.
The
The
mountain
mountain
itself is a
itself.
community. And, for a while there at Eaton, we had a lot of deaths, fatalities, not just accidents. Funerals had to be planned for what happened. And my friend Diane, who is Apache, she and I just clicked immediately over at the canyon. And I remember her saying, the mountain is angry. And I knew what she meant. And I don't know if other people would understand that. And, she said the mountain is angry. And I'm like, yeah, and it's claiming lives because we're all disrespecting her. And she's fighting back the only way she can, So when we say that it's a community, number one, everything in nature has a way to defend itself, and it will. It needs to be respected. It needs to be respected and accepted as an entity, as not just a place, as a community that needs to be protected, respected, and I don't know what the most important thing that you can give anyone or anything is respect. So that's what I say when I mean community. That's what I mean.
How can people foster that respect towards the mountain?
To all things. Recognize that it is a living, breathing being. Recognize that it has its own beauty. Recognize that it goes through cycles and sometimes it wants to be left alone. Accept that maybe sometimes you have to stay away because the mountain, the community, the beach, the river has to regenerate itself, and it doesn't need you around to do that. Pick up your trash. The leave no trace principles. Pack it in, pack it out. Don't take anything. And these are things that we know, but we forget. Yeah.
I just want to say we have a couple more questions for you, but I wanted to let the viewers know that we're going to have a Q&A.
Oh, okay.
So if you just put the questions up there in text, we'll take them down and we'll bring up those questions for you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Oh, okay. So we're down to the last question. It's the big one. Take as much time as you like. What is your hope and vision for the future?
Goodness. I don't know. To date, this whole month it's just the 2 weeks have just been hopeless for different reasons, obviously. I really hope that people see nature as, like I said, and respect that it is a living, breathing entity. I think that if we can do things that are not human, we can accept that the things that are in nature have vascular systems, they have reproductive systems, they have life cycles. If we can accept that to things that are not Homo sapiens sapien, maybe we can apply it to one another. I know that when we're on trail through OBA or other places, where we come doesn't matter. It's we're all functioning as one group, and the result has to be that we all arrive safely to where we're going, and that we all arrive safely to base camp. So we have to depend on one another for that. It works because it's a small group, but sometimes when we go out into the world and we're in different groups that don't have the same background, that don't have the same training, that don't have the same life experience, sometimes it's difficult for us to forget that, hey, you know what? We're more alike than we are different. So I think that my hope for the future is for everyone to experience what freedom really feels like.
Thank you. One of the questions we have from the audience, you mentioned earlier, was what do you think about access to public space, especially now during the pandemic?
It's been difficult. I will always fight for the right to access, but I think more important is that I have to fight for the land. And until we recognize that we are harming spaces, I have to say, let's just all stay home until we can get the trails cleared so that the trails are clearly marked. Let's just wait a little so that people, volunteers can come in and clean up the trails, make sure there's trash cans, make sure there's no poison oak, to make them safe for visitors and to make them safe for the space itself. I went to Eaton not too long ago, and the amount of people that were there compacting soil, going off trail, leaving trash, it was just, it was heartbreaking. I don't know what side to be on, because both are equally important. The right to breathe fresh air, but if we don't take care of the land, it's not going to be there for us in the future. So I guess I picked a side. I'm voting for the land.
I know one of the things that comes up in conversation among people who work with the earth is the idea that as we work to heal the land is healing us. I'm sure you've had that experience. Do you want to talk about how that applies to what your work looks like right now?
I have to tell you that my father's death was, it was obviously heartbreaking, and seeing them dig that hole and with machines, I thought, let me dig it. Let me dig my father's grave. I can dig a hole. I can dig it deep. I can dig it right. I can do this on my own. It just seems so impersonal. And that was in December. I went back to work and we had a plant. I couldn't do it. I couldn't touch that. I could not touch the soil, because the soil is meant to grow things. And the last time I touched dirt was at my father's grave. And it was very difficult, but I did it. And I did it because my father worked as a migrant farm worker. He worked as a cotton picker, a peach picker, a pecan picker. You name it, he picked it. He worked as a cowboy. His hands were never, ever clean. The dirt was permanent under his nails. And touching that soil, smelling that the bacteria, the geosmin and the petrichor, that was healing. That was very healing. And it's one of those things, if you've never touched fresh tilled soil where it's fluffy and it smells so good, or felt it between your toes, or just, watched something pop up that you planted, the connection isn't there. It's not, it's something that everyone has to experience on their own, and each experience is going to be different. But the earth heals, nature heals. Spirit walks are a big thing in different Native American cultures. Forest bathing is important in with Japanese culture. Um, there's a there is definitely healing in nature, and it's something that we all need to experience on our own, and it's out there.
I do. You mentioned the idea of disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I think a lot about as a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
is that when you teach gardening or environmental studies, ecology, whatever it is, in an urban environment, you recognize that a lot of kids that you're dealing with don't know soil. They don't know the ecosystem. They haven't largely experienced it. And in a lot of cases, they've been deliberately kept away from it for fear of it.
For fear. I mean, being in the outdoors through generational trauma means different things to different people. Strange fruit. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to tell you. Go Google that. Go Google what strange fruit means. Think about what working the land means to some people. To some people, it means having your own space and being self-sufficient. To others, it means slavery. To some people, it means leaving one place and doing the same work and going to another to give your children a better life. To other people, it means, that's not the kind of work I want to do because I'm better than that. Well, you know what? No, we're not. If you don't know how to grow your own food, you are a slave. You are a slave to commercial farming. You are a slave to whatever is available in the stores. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna start crying. Don't make me cry. There is a disconnect, especially when it comes to food. But there's a disconnect on with how much nature gives us. Our homes are nature. It's wood and trees. The concrete is nature. Those are the rocks that come from the mountain, get ground up, and get made into cement and concrete. The windows are glass, but that's sand. Nature is everywhere, and it's not just a tree. It is the air around us. It's the air that we breathe. It's not just the bird. It's the absence of birds. Because if you don't have that bird song, that means you don't have any trees. So okay, let's do some investigation. Nature is not, just life. It's the sky. It's the stars. It's the moon. It's I can't believe that you can be standing on the planet Earth and be so disconnected from everything that's around us. That disconnection. I think it's an emotional do you what's the word I'm looking for? My mind is just going a million miles an hour. Disconnection, and it's an emotional and a scientific and educational disconnect as well.
Do you think that it's connected, that so many people are disconnected from each other as human beings and from nature as well?
Yes, absolutely. They're connected. The idea of community has has changed. And because the idea has changed, the definition has changed. Community isn't just where you live. Community is kindred. Community is, people that maybe share the same ideas. You can form a community. Community is helping each other out. Community is relationships. It's not a place. Community is a feeling. In nature, community is, it's a web. It's everything that's helping each other.
I like that a lot. Another question we have is someone who is recently up at Eaton Canyon, or up in the San Gabriels, I should say. And they asked, how do you think we can address overuse of trails and advocate for people who take better care of the land?
Oh goodness. So depending on what side of the mountain you're on, the two has more developed trails, and they do tend to be overused where there's parking lots because there's easy access, and that's great. On the 39 side, there aren't as many parking lots. The trails are good, but you have to work a little bit harder to get to them. So it's a matter of education. I don't know if there's such a thing as overuse so much as over need. We if people are using them that much, we need them. Let's find other trails, disperse the population a little bit. That's the educational part. What we can do, again, is education. Talk to people about leave no trace. Have more trash cans available at trailhead so that people can pick up their trash. If they don't want to carry it out, at least, leave it there. Have, as much as I hate to say it, more signage, encouraging people to pick up after themselves. One of the best signs I've ever seen, that's anti-litter, a blue and white sign, and it said, "If you litter, shame on y'all." And it made me laugh, and it drove the point home, and I'm going to make one of those signs. Well, okay, I'm going to ask someone to help make it for me because I have no artistic talent. And I want the reverse side to say, "Tiran basura sin vergüenza." See, it made you laugh, right? And it gets the point home, right? Sin vergüenza. Yeah, that's what you are, sin vergüenza, leaving your trash here. So that's, it has to be approachable. Everything has to be approachable. One of the, the things that I learned from my grandmother is like, whatever you do it with happiness. And later on, it became approach me with peace in your heart. And the second part of that is, or leave with the boot in your ass. So do it with love, do it with kindness, but be prepared to have a consequence, or there's no point, right? So, fines are not always the answer, because we'll be targeting poor communities, but I don't know, community service can be done.
That's a good point. I noticed, and I know this has been discussed many times before, but the most used trails have the easiest access.
And that's why they're the most used. They go hand in hand.
Used, exactly. But it also comes with a lot of litter, and maybe that's just because there isn't enough education.
Well, it's not that there's just not enough education. I think there's also that expectation that there are park rangers. There's no park rangers. There's not, there's like, anybody ever, seen, what is it, Yogi Bear? They were in in Jellystone, right? How many park rangers were there? One. Ranger Smith, and that's all there was. And it's pretty much the same thing. The Forest Service hasn't hired anyone since Yogi Bear, but there aren't enough park rangers. There aren't enough people there to clean up. And why should, as an adult, why do you need someone to clean up after you? I don't know. So, maybe seeing volunteerism and community service not as a punishment, but as a duty, that messaging should also be out there. More trash cans, have, Smokey Bear at the bottom handing out trash bags and say, bring it back full. It's very simple messaging, and yes, it can be done. And I was on trail, and I had this guy who's from Pacoima, and he was, really muscular. He looked like he just got out of jail. And we were walking, and I was doing my tour, talking about plants, talking about this, and he started taking notes, and it was awesome. And his friend had like a Capri Sun, and just dropped it. He just dropped it. I just looked at him, like, okay. And his friend said, hey, we're in nature, fool, right? Just the way he said it, I'm like, I have a convert. He gets it. So I think that's what we need, more one-on-one and very personalized education, not as a shaming and finger pointing, but as in, hey, look, if you want to come back and enjoy this pristine area, we have to keep it pristine. Otherwise, it's just, like the side of the freeway full of trash.
Yeah, I like the idea of it's public land, it's for all of us to use, but it's also for all of us to take care of. So it's there for us and future generations as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this thought that comes up in conversation about conservation and how we define conservation. And one of maybe a misconception, I think, of the way we've done conservation historically is that we've given up the relationship of people to that land and said, people don't belong there, we're conserving it.
That's
versus
oh, that's like, yeah, no, go ahead, finish your sentence, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think you get my drift.
Oh.
The question is, how do we relate and take that responsibility?
So one of the more positive things that has come through this COVID-19 crisis and public lands are that the animals are taking over. And by taking over, I mean they're reclaiming what is theirs. And I think that now that people have seen that, the idea is, instead of making this land people-centric, let's make it nature-centric. Okay, so that's step one, is letting the animals and nature, reconnect with itself. The second part is, okay, now we can move on from making it tourist-centric to making it culture-centric, to where we can open public spaces up that were traditional lands back up for traditional use. Because if the animals and and nature and everything is back on its own cycle, it makes sense that people should be, indigenous cultures should be back collecting when the time is right, because that takes care of the land. The whole idea of not connecting people to plants is just, I don't understand. Plants and people go together. When I'm on giving my tours, I drive that point home. Plants literally connect to a place by their roots, and they connect to the sky with their leaves, and they connect the water through the water cycle. Plants are connectors, and with that they have people, and the people that take care of them, the people take care of the plants, and the plants take care of the people. They're intertwined. And that goes to a Eurocentric feel where, parks and these public spaces weren't really public. They were for the king. They were for people that had the money. That comes from, public space and protecting it for people comes from that thinking and not valuing the traditional indigenous knowledge, not valuing traditional indigenous people as having knowledge, number one, not and treating them as subhuman, and that's just that connection needs to happen again. You're right. Was it Muir? Muir was the one kicking people out left and right, and I was at a meeting for the Sierra Club, and for the first time ever, I heard someone that had rank in the Sierra Club say Muir was wrong, Muir was a racist, the public land movement for conservation was meant to conserve for white people. Mm-hmm. I think water came out of my nose. I said, what? And I didn't know what else to say. I was just, stunned. And he was right. And so, my question was, okay, so what is the Sierra Club going to do about that now? Okay, step one is acknowledging what's step two. So now they are advocating for, traditional cultures to have gathering rights and, gathering food and gathering for ceremony in different places that are protected. So that's one good thing. So the Sierra Club is doing it. They might not be doing it loudly, but they're doing it.
And it's up to all of us to continue that movement.
Yes, it's up to all of us to, number one, recognize that California has almost 200 indigenous cultures. 200. It's up to all of us, the leave no trace ethics. Number one, know before you go. So number one, know whose land you're on. Start with that. If we can acknowledge that this place that we're standing in has a history other than what is being told to us, that's a huge step in the right direction. And then do the research, find out who was there, what they used. The plants have history. The plants, there's something beautiful in knowing that when I pick an acorn, or when an acorn just falls on me, that one of my ancestors ate it, mashed it, and, turned it into a little pishkai. And, here I am 1,000 years later, and that knowledge was passed down. So there's something really beautiful in connecting with the past through plants.
That is beautiful. I'd like to end on that beautiful note.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, Brenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.